G'day YouTube, warbles on a lot here. As you may have noticed, it's become fairly fashionable these days in a lot of little towns all the way across Australia to establish museums, palaces of memory, monuments to days of long lost imperial, industrial, expanding colonial glory. And a bit over 50 years ago, this fashion for history, passion for history, took a pretty deep grip over my hometown, Glen Innes. If he were alive today, my father would today be 111 years old. So it gripped him pretty hard. So it did. Now, I don't know whether he was a foundation member of the Historical Society or whether he was just one of the very early birds, but around about 1968, as I recall it, the Historical Society got together and clubbed their money, and for a while they opened the old Cobb coach change station at Bald Knob as a museum, but there were all kinds of problems with that: structural, insurance, health and safety. This, I went with my father when he retrieved this in a paddock, and he took me down to his workshop and showed me when he got it restored to the point where it'll run on compressed air. I have seen it running. I have explained that to visitors. I think it was at the 1972 trade fair or the show that he had this thing going. So I might have been 10 or 11 years old at that point. However, when the Bald Knob pub failed as a venue for a museum, the Historical Society got its act together, so to speak, and they managed to secure the old hospital, which, as you can see, is a quite seriously substantial complex of buildings rather than a building. So whereas a lot of places, yeah, they've got a museum, but it's a sort of a small affair wedged into a tumble down house, perhaps at one end or the other of the main street. What they decided to call the Land of the Beardies History House and Museum, it was big right from the start. They spent a couple of years getting ready to open it, and it first opened on, wait for it, 26th of January 1970. So we're coming up to the 50th anniversary, and seeing as I was here and part of it when it opened, my role being to wear period costume made out of period cloth. So while I was on the steam train making its way from Glencoe to Glen Innes, being robbed by bushrangers on horseback, the period trousers split over my period arse. So my major memory of the event was making my way shamefacedly with me back to every fence I could find from the railway station to William Street to change into a pair of jeans. And by the time I got up here, most of the pomp and the circumstance had occurred in my absence. I can't tell you much else about what happened back then, but what I can do is I can give you a bit of a YouTube tour of the History House. I spent a lot of my teenage years orbiting, fixing, sitting, desk duty, door duty as they called it, I didn't quite grow up in a museum, but yeah, this might go some way to explain why I'm a bit of an anachronism. Don't quite fit the times, so to speak. Here we have the data plate plaque in the vestibule. Because it's a hospital and because fresh air and sunshine was such a big part of the curative process back in the days, there is a central courtyard at the end of a short corridor just past the gifty shopping, with the inevitable collection of mementos. Fairly well displayed. As advertised, we have a central sunny courtyard with a therapeutic veranda. Running all the way around. Not having been here for 20 or 30 years, I recall this as the military room, which has all gone thoroughly Celtic since last time I was here. There was always a pretty strong Scottish sort of a flavour to the place. Celtic Aborigines are a new touch, as is the map of Cornwall. The place does tend to feature a throbbing lot of mineral displays, partly because the Glen Innes Gemstone Mineral Club, don't know whether they're still headquartered here, but they always used to be, and they furnish some rinky-dink displays. Right, back to some of the old original stuff. This is an actual settler's cottage, physically picked up, removed and relocated and reassembled here in the museum. Built in 1870, and it's got a plaque to old Ruby Fort on it. What a good thing. And apparently we have a timer on an electric light to see the inside. Let's hope that's working. Yeah, okay. Right, well, it's pretty dim and dull. But as always, considering that it's rough-hewn slabs on the outside, one wonders whether your actual pioneers would have gone to a four-posted bed and wallpaper. Happily, the corner of the kitchen is in a bit more original condition with an open fire. But one of the things you get with a setup like this is everybody brings the best that they've got collected from their grandparents' time. So the stuff in the museum winds up being sort of a cut well above the average for what was getting around in 1870. We also tend to get a bit of a phenomenon where somebody's got a really good camera collection and they die and they leave it in the museum. So the museum finishes up with a really good camera collection. And the reflections on the glass cases are absolutely the bane of the YouTube videographer. Howard Eastwood, my mate, John Tregurtha. And I knew him well. Somebody else is into clipper ships. Somebody else built themselves a bark hut. A binnacle with kerosene or candle lampstand. Binnacle case anyway. You have a potter's wheel. Beside the nautical stuff, beside the cameras, beside the tobacconist's display. Commemorative royal memorabilia. Wild bird book collections. Kerosene and petrol powered irons. Thermal massive steel of cast iron type irons, teapots. Electronics, early ones, transistor radio. Brick type mobile phones. Two wheelchairs. Austrian cane chair, bentwood. Baby scales. Yes, I've got it now. This is a display featuring stuff from a chemist's shop. Back in the days when Pat Timms bought Grovers, and Grovers had been a compounding chemist. Pretty sure I've been weighed on those. Renovation's constantly underway. Okay, so we have half an optometrist shop. We have a pedal-powered dentist's drill, which I used to play with as a kid. They seem to have relocated all the stuff that used to be in the medical wing. Over there we have an X-ray machine, dental. Yes. Okay. Manicure set, 50s and 60s. If there's meant to be any sense of chronology here, I'm not getting it. Big heap of tools from Chaffee's. Welding goggles with no glasses. Wow. Once again, somebody's donated the Summer Lads family crockery. From back in the days when the well-to-do used to compete to compare the colour and the quality of the plates off which they were too well bred to ever eat. That's why they displayed them, hanging up in cases on the wall. Grey Street, there, as seen from the Town Hall Tower, 1900s. It's really good if you like looking at old photos in really low light. There's lots of it. And yeah, the idea was to set up several exemplary rooms just the way everybody remembered their grandmother would have liked it to have been. How many people had this much stuff, I don't know. But, you know, if you'd managed to retain a set of knee boots with their wooden stretchers like that, the thing to do with them in 1968 onwards in Glen Innes has been to donate it to the History House. Don't know that this room has changed much since I last saw it, perhaps 40 years ago. Oh, what have we here? We have washing machines, hand-driven wringers, washing board glass, washing board corrugated iron, hand-driven wringer, clothes horse, hand-powered washing machine. Not too many of these survive the coming of the new ages. That's a hollow cone. Raise it up and down, create concentric shock waves in the water, pump the water and the soap through the clothes. Candle moulds, candle holder, washing board, wooden. Clothes basket, 3 of. Hopper for boiling water over a fire. Evaporation pan by the look of it. More clothes baskets, gas burners, electric stove 1930s. Yeah, that's got to be something I can't see. Yeah, that's a clothes washer. Oh, shows how much I know. It is a clothes washer. Whereas over on this side we have the butter churns. Milk drum, cherry stoner, raisin mincer. That's the guts out of a butter churn, missing one vein. Little wall kerosene light, gas stove, kerosene stove, meat safe, kerosene fridge, that's probably a hot water heater, gas firing ring. And this device claims to be a constant pressure regulating spung. Patent. Whatever you want a constant pressure regulating spung for, that is one of them. And there is probably the explainification. It's a knife cleaning machine. Yes, cleans the knives rapidly and efficiently. Literally whatever you had that your grandparents thought a hell of a lot of that you'd still clung on to, you brought to the museum and you donated it. Everybody had something. Here we go. Another room full of really, really shiny Edwardian bling, Georgian bling, Victorian bling. Silver candlesticks, velvet curtains. Yep, just the way everybody lived in Glen Innes 120 years ago or so. Or maybe not so much. This gives you more the flavour of colonial pioneer life. These are petrol tins. The Vacuum Oil Company, Proprietary Limited, has made them, and somebody has made an 8-drawer chest of drawers out of oil tins. Nice little high chair. American style turn chair. Whoops. Here we go. Another pair of Grandpa's knee-high riding boots. Water fountains and kettles. And a pretty good barometer on the wall. With a plate dresser, as they were called. And oh, what a hell of a big cowbell that one is. And when I was a kid, this was the Aboriginal room. Oh, look, we've actually got some pottery Aboriginal faces made by William Ricketts. And some pictures of piccaninnies by Viola Edith Brownie Downing. Porcelain platypuses. Lovely old nightlights. I have a feeling those are probably miners' lights. German view of a platypus. More of them here. Porcelain platypuses from Perth. And pigs with telescopes. So, lots of platypuses, but no boomerang. Although this is a wonderful twin wick kerosene lamp, which looks like it would be enormously easy to knock over and burn the house down with. But anyway, I suppose it better lights up the blue swallows. And that was Jock Robinson's collection, apparently. Well, maybe his was just these porcelain platypuses. I didn't realise there were quite that many porcelain platypuses anywhere on the planet, let alone secreted in what used to be the Aboriginal room of the History House at Glen Innes. We have trout flies made by Elsa Lowry, eminent entomologist who planted a garden of European trees in Glen Innes known as High Woods, which she subsequently donated to the council upon her demise, leaving them with no clear idea what to do or how to cover the cost. So eventually they sold it. We have a functional toilet together with a medical display of foot baths and bedpans. New super slipper bedpan. And bottles. Ceramic bed warmer. Babies' potties. And there we go. Eric Wharton. And the Glen Innes District Ambulance, which he restored. Together with a horse-drawn ambulance, an early ambulance, my old man was the ambulance driver because he was an engineer and mechanic and he could get the bloody thing going but it didn't want to start. We have an old hospital patient's room. This is the hospital and medical wing. Don't know whether endless hours looking at this stuff when I was a young teenager had anything to do with me finding nursing interesting. But I do remember when the old man was restoring this 50 years ago. It wasn't so much an ambulance trolley as it was the ambulance. With the bent axle, so that the person who was hanging on at this end of the stretcher was able to walk through. And these legs hold the frame horizontal. We call that an iron lung for a baby. Hot water steriliser. Scales. Anatomical dummy from the days when Glen Innes Hospital was a training hospital. Presented to the hospital by the old Nuffield, back in the days when polio was a big problem. Rubber seal around here goes on the person's neck. Mirror goes up here. An electric motor in a gear train creates a negative pressure in here, which sucks on here, which sucks on the box, which sucks air into the patient's lungs. It was better than dying. Operating table set up for a gynecological procedure. Anesthetic machine. Yet another one. Chloroform and ether anesthetics. Sphygmomanometer. Tracheoscopes, plastic one. Joyce's biscuits, okay. Right. Well, yeah, I reckon the old man's restored ambulance trolley's the pick of the litter there, but you know, each to their own, I suppose. Judging by the size of that window, this probably was the operating theatre. Certainly looks like it with all the sinks. Oh, look at that, Chinese acupuncture charts. No, not as such. Forgive that mild journey into jest. Sorry about that. Some people just can't read. Ah, the war against rebellious Dutchmen in White South Africa. Way to prove your manhood. Go and kill some strangers for Queen Victoria. Dear, oh dear, oh dear. The military wing has grown. (1840). Glen Innes Examiner. Yeah, right. Okay. Ooh, look at that. The first plane landed at Glen Innes in 1919. Although this is not the original plane, it is very similar. That's a DH-9 belonging to the Australian Flying Corps if it's in 1919, because the Royal Australian Air Force didn't get its start till 1921. Yeah, Great Wall of Photos. Yes, 1928. Their Hinkler did indeed land here. That's why I happen to live on the northwest ridge of Hinkler Hill, because as he disappeared and became a speck going out of sight as he left, headed north, they renamed Bald Knob to Hinkler Hill because he disappeared out of sight flying over it. 1944. The last fatal crash in Glen Innes before 1995, when Canada John conducted his kamikaze attack on a sheep. That was across country from Lismore to Moree and back, and there were about 7 people on the four-place aircraft, and the pilot was tightly turning at low altitude and overstressed the overloaded aeroplane, and a wing fell off. And that's what was left. 1958, putting in the Bellbird Gully on the on the New Grafton Road. Cyclone in 1964, I actually remember that, you know. 3 years old, but I do remember it. It knocked down the oldest part of a blacksmith shop. Yeah, Golf Club Fire, 1978. I was out of town, but I did hear about it. 1984, that was the last time we had our 3 foot of snow that lay on the ground for a week. Used to happen every 10 years. I saw it in 64, 74 and 84. The standing slivers being erected. Yes, fire at Luton Peavies. Henry River Bridge got flooded. No doubt they'll have pictures of the Burnt Man River Bridge. And that entire wall of photos is over the top of a truly magnificent, comprehensive collection of shells. Collected by generations of Glen Innes people who've gone to the beach and come home with a souvenir. We have fossilised diprotodon, found at Redestone. Back to the war memorabilia. Ah, yes. Code of Honour. This is a modern interpretation for all those who served and dedicated their lives in the First and Second World War and the impact it had on humanity. Authentic impact images were researched and sourced on the internet. Printed images glued onto photo paper and covered with contact to protect the finished garment. The coat is embellished with the Flanders poppy, lovingly made by Glen Industries. And one of them wore this at a fashion parade organised by my mother. Going looking for fashion parade, Glen Innes Land of the Beardies History House in my videos, and you will find it. Actually, you'll find 4 videos. Forgive the side angle view, but if I go try and stand in front of this Vietnam War collage, I'm going to get banged by the reflection of the light. Militaria. With a key telling which dingle dangle belongs to what. List of awards. Mothers of World War II Soldiers Medal. It wasn't only the Germans who gave out medals to the mothers of soldiers for having given birth to a soldier. Once one side starts, everybody's got to have a go. I like that. Forgotten and thrown out, but rescued. After all that. We have A crocheted poppy encrusted entrance. George Kelly's greatcoat, battle jacket, souvenir dagger, Len's Attic compass pocket knife webbing belt. A mud map and a watercolour and a photograph of Gallipoli. When I was a kid, scarcely a house in town didn't have these. Memorial sacrificial style photos. The Cheerio girls of Farrakabad. Well, didn't quite expect to see a mortar shell in there. That book's on sale in the gifting shoppy as you come into the museum. Placards explaining the uniforms. Tastefully displayed. Well lit too. Fair bit of flavour, but not much about any of the people who actually did things. I had a go at making a video here a couple of years ago, and this trend had not progressed quite this far. I really don't understand that great big balsa wood propeller. It's difficult to see what connection that's got, unless somebody built model aeroplanes and then went on to become a pilot in the war, maybe. Yeah. All right, so we've made a bit of room for Afghanistan and Vietnam. Charlie Surf. He flew the Havilland Mosquito fighter bomber. He's credited with the only shoot down of a 5-engine Heinkel HE111Z Zwilling glider tug in his Mosquito. A feat which annoyed Adolf Hitler to the point where, in a speech in the Reichstag, he put a price on Charlie Surf's head. Once upon a time there was a considerably larger display in this museum to the deeds of daring do done by Charlie Scherf. Before this place apparently underwent something of a change of management. I've got to say, if I was a teenager, stuck on door duty at the museum on Christmas holidays when nobody was coming in, if I was poking around and pottering around, trying to put stuff together in my head today, I would never have discovered who Charlie Scherf was, or what he did, or how he was connected to the Haviland Mosquito and the Zwilling Glider Tug. It was, a lot has been lost in the changes, in my opinion. Glen Innes District Reserve Rifle Club Roll of Honour. Glen Innes World War Band Roll of Honour. Dots indicating the dead and a couple of military medals. New England Grammar School Roll of Honour. Two little crosses died of killed in action, and a flower potty thing died of illness. Newton Boyd on a roll. I think this is the Glen Innes Hospital on a roll. Can that be right? Yeah. Engraved in marble. Royal Hand of Friendship, Australian Imperial Forces on a roll. With asterisks for you died on active service. Farrakabad on a roll. 1418. 3945. One could be forgiven that Glen Innes existed for the purposes of breeding recruits, enlistees and reinforcements for Australia's military adventures. And then we have a little alcove of the God Botherers. Mainly of the Christian variety. Not seeing any Jews, not seeing any Muslims, Confucians. There should be. This place had a pretty big tradition of Chinese miners 150 years ago, and what they call joss houses. However, what we've got here is the white bread version of spirituality. Only the Christians need apply, parenterally. This is the slab-walled Graham's Valley Post Office. Pigeonholes for sorting mail. I'm imagining this was off on one end of a more substantial building. And that's opposite the organ from the Methodist Church, which has become a theatre after the Methodists and the Presbyterians united, became the Uniting Church, schismed, and the reactionary rump Presbyterian Church remains. The original plaque when this wing of the hospital was opened in 1936, and we have an intercom telephone handle to run a generator to make a bell ring at the other end of the dedicated line. Back out here on the courtyard. This device is apparently a compressor for mixing carbon dioxide with water for making soda water. Travelling trunk. I see, yes. Mixing milkshakes by hand. An old phone box. We have a children's room. Yeah. Not many actual mysteries in there. And once again we get the dolls that were too good to play with. Typewriters. I've got one of those, but mine's got a broken top deck. Now that's a nice doll's house. Right. We have the original hospital stove. Isn't that a corker? Pretty sure it would have been running on coke. No, firewood. Okay, an Arga running on firewood. What a machine. People who know how sausages are made tend not to eat them. A cheese cutter. Portable ice box with cork insulation. Meat slicer. Kerosene tin. Turned into a washstand, oh yes. Cast iron scone moulds. Gem irons as they'd call them. A rotary kitchen canister. What a ripper. Cooking salt and corn flour. Things called Grundy bins. Hospital food long had a reputation of being boring, lacking flavour. Often this was unjustified. Given the lack of staff and ingredients and the high number of patients, it was not possible to please all of the people all of the time. When inquiring from a past nurse as to the diets in hospital in days of gone past, she said, well dear, the only difference between the custard and the scrambled egg was that there was salt in the scrambled eggs. What is that doing in a museum? Buy those in the hardware shop today. Nice old camp oven, another one, but neither one of them have got their lid. These two missing their lid. Don't think that's a preserving pan, I think that's a stew pot. The push and ride Irish mail toy. Yeah, can't see that getting past occupational health and safety these days. You're not going to believe this, it's just a haul of photos. 3 decks high. Up and down. There's another thing. Grandparents die. What do you do with all the old photos when you go to clean out their house? You find pride of place for that beside your flat screen TV, do you? No. You throw it all to the dump? Not likely. That would be disrespectful. What we do is we give these to the museum. Bob Wharton's barbershop. The costume room. My aged mother has an enormous amount to do with this. That fashion parade I mentioned earlier was to raise money to put a new roof on the building which houses the rest of the collection, which is far too vast to actually display at any one time. So this is all constantly being changed. Turn that into that, if you know what you're doing. Or just sort of cobble yourself up some bob and lace when you're not too busy otherwise. Before the days of television, you see. One of my co-subscribers, the leprechaun known as Walkabout 16, will probably appreciate this, seeing as he used to be a damask weaver in his youth. Shot through glass, I'm afraid, mate. Catherine Hartman, Public School, Dundee, 1904. Wow. Elizabeth Kidd wrought this in the year 18 is her age. August 8, 1823. Wow. Christine Taylor Graham's Valley, aged 16 years, 1893. 1898. With exhibition guides. The Ericsson wooden box telephone. I didn't do it, he said. And he held up his hands. I was only making a video, I hope you understand. Blackout gaslight mask for your car headlights. And we're starting to get into the automotive and mechanicals. Give your children arnots. Milk arrowroot biscuits. Sunlight Flour Milling Company registered office. Mackenzie's self-service. Yeah, there used to be a hostel for high school kids. Okay, this little corner is apiary. bees, honey. It's all to do with honey. My next door neighbour, Craig Klingman. An accounting machine, surveyor's theodolite, and professional tools, together with a chain measure. Forester's sample of timbers. Yeah, wouldn't mind having that. Trees, back in the days when they used to make trees. Proper trees. For some reason, you just can't find trees like that any no more. And then just to keep it nice and light, from the Glen Innes Courthouse, we have a whipping stool, they call it, but a whipping bench with a cat o' nine tails. Bend the miscreant over that and beat them until they bleed. An old-fashioned switchboard from the telephone exchange. Insulators, cash registers, telephones, the backwater telephone exchange from Kookabookra. Yet another one with bob weights and pulleys, keep the lines from tangling. A fire engine, a lay flat hose. That is a pressure canister. Various bits of cookery. Are you getting the idea that it outclasses in every way your average small country town museum? This is the band room. Then it's had a marching band and a pipe band and a Salvation Army band and a high school band. Oh look, there's another telephone exchange. No, fire station switchboard, 1915 to 1981. Okay. Woodworking tools of a bush carpenter. And a ladder in the background. Wow. Handmade nails. Moulding plane. A pedal-driven jigsaw. Sit on the seat, pedal that. Pivoting on here with a bell crank, and that little crank wheel there drives your blade up and down on the end of wooden arms. Pedal-powered lathe. Pretty sure somebody's made that out of a sewing machine. Set of descriptions for how to work a butter churn. In printing mould for export grade butter, another butter churn. Lots of butter churns. Butter moulds, putting patterns on. Butter pats. Butter mallets. Used to be a pretty good dairy in the region until the rainfall dropped, went down to 40% of what it used to be, 60 years after they cleared the coastal forest. An ore sample crusher. Starting to get into mining equipment. A mining cradle, looking for gold or tin. Miner's rammer and shovels. Smelter's ladle. Picks, rock drills, stonemason's chisel, pelican pick. Working out the mullock. Like that one. Miner's ladder. Wouldn't want to fall off that, would you? Photographic enlarger. A press stapling machine. I think this is all Glen Innes Examiner. Then we have a wool press. And another one, wooden hurdles. Portable fencing. Shearing rig. Brands, some of those my grandfather probably made. And this is a hand shearing rig. One person turns the handle while somebody else gets on the other end of this and shears the sheep. Probably a miner's wheelbarrow. Slightly asymmetric, but nonetheless. And then we come out here. Side saddle. Photos, we have another side saddle. We have horse collars and harness, and it's all in really good condition. Blinkers, another collar, riding whip, reins. We have a little dray. 4-in-hand buggy of Cecil Bloxham. I used to have a buggy in here, but there was a time when it was feared that the Glen Innes History House was about to be subsumed by the Armidale Historical Society, which had one of those little dinky looking baby museum stuck in a rented house sort of things. And the fear was that they were going to join the two museums together and pinch all our exhibits. So I think when I was in boarding school, my parents decided to get out of that arrangement, and rather than lend the buggy that my grandfather left me, this is my inheritance, leave it in the museum where it might, although it was on loan, finish up being snaffled by Armidale. They sold it to somebody who actually used it because they were getting into horses and carts. Oh, here we go. Life membership conferred on my father, who could dress himself up and make himself look like that when he was impersonating Cranky Jack, a character in a Henry Lawson novel. My father on the left, his father making the wheel. There is photos of Wharton's garage. That was when he did his practice, putting a steel tyre on a wooden wheel. And this is the one that was done, the full blare of publicity with everybody watching. I was there for that. And that's that steam engine I showed you at the start of the movie. That's what it looked like when the old man gave it to the museum. Eric Potter, Eric Sharman, Eric Wharton and Bill Sharman. Bill Sharman on the left, my old man in the middle. down at the water cart that I also showed you at the start. Picture of the tunnel on the old Glen Innes Road. I'm getting to show this without the reflections, is a bit of a trick. And would you believe, even though I started this with 2 hours in hand, I've got about 5 minutes to get out of the museum because they close at 4. Rough fellows and various spokes and wagon hubs. Okay, what have we forgot? Barbed wire. Types of fencing wire. And every one of them's different. Fair dinkum. Every one of them's different. So, Chinaman's yoke. Owing to the pressure of the time, I'm just not going to be able to show you the rest of this. However, I doubt if this is the last time I'm in the museum. Oh, look at that. Yet another pair of knee boots with their moulds in place. And we have a schoolroom which does not look particularly different from Glen Innes Primary School when I attended it in the 1960s. Yep, absolutely. I have mixed ink with equipment like that. I have used ink wells just like those ones. I haven't used the slates. Couple of radiograms. Ancient Order of Foresters. Yeah, I think that's it. We've kind of done it. Oh, look, we've got a functional pianola. Record player, radiogram, and another radiogram. Back to the band. This is worth looking at. The original surveyor's mark was cut into the tree, and this is where the tree grew into the mark. And then it's been cut off. Okay, well, all right. No worries. The Clip Notes version Cook's tour of the Glen Innes Land of the Beardies History House and Museum. As they insist on saying, and Research Centre. This entire building is the store for the costume department, and up there you can see the new roof, which was part paid for by the fashion parade, as illustrated by the coat of honour, and also as illustrated in the videos of the parade, which I mentioned to you, you can find in my videos. Here we have a really, really large cast iron vat used for boiling down sheep for mutton fat. And this is the Harold Parsons machinery shed. He was a good old bloke, Harold. Funny sort of a character, not everybody cottoned to him, but yeah, I didn't mind him. He was good at borrowing things, not so good at returning them. But you know, the generation that lived through the Depression was a bit like that. Anyway, he had the the great desire to build this old-fashioned bush carpentry style, because that's what he was a bush carpenter. And since his time they've got another machinery shed, which I also showed you earlier. And this has become the tractor shed, and look, see, it's got a concrete floor. And these things actually go. I'm not sure which one it is. I think it might be the McCormick Dairy. It's the only one in the world of its kind, you know. If you're a tractor aficionado. 1930 McCormick Deering. Portable engine, 23 Ruston, the Hornsby 5.5 horsepower oil. Sorry about that, I was reading the sign, not looking at the screen. Rumbling. And this is the kiddie cart joyride trailer with which they take the kids for a run. I think behind the McCormick Deering. What a complicated way. To get a couple of horsepower without having to feed a horse. Not sure that's going to come out. No seat at all on this, no time for sitting down, you've got to stand there and hang on for your dear life. No deposit Dulux poison. That's the underday allowed. If you go for a ride on a tractor that runs on poison, and there's a whole heap of other stuff, which will have been cleared out of the shed to make room. Sign off the Paragon Cafe from out of the main street. And out here, beside the museum's rear entrance, we have the charcoal gas producers, vintage World War II. This one of which was made by my father. He used to take his family to the coast for a holiday in 1944 with that thing. And up there is the matron's flat, where the museum engages a caretaker for the price of free rent. And I think they do a little bit of door duty too. Anyway, that's the Glen Innes Land of the Beardies History House and Museum, Bracket and Research Centre. I've been meaning to do that video for a long time, but I knew it would be a long and a complicated video. And when I had a 15-minute upload limit, it kind of sort of wasn't worth doing, because it would have been at least 3 or 4 videos. I haven't really looked to see how long this has gone for, but it's done, finally, at length. Warbles on a lot to YouTube. So there. Ciao.